This morning on Weigh In, it wasn't a shock, but Here to Shock trumps the Kiwis to take home our Group 1 spoils. A carbon copy for our Vencedor, this time on the biggest stage. Rory Hutchings joins us live a decade after his last Herbie Dyke win. Get the number ones out because Tuxedo is on his way to the Derby, dazzling in the Waikato Guineas. Speaking of dazzling, how good is this girl? It was touch and go, but like a Lucy, showed her class once again. And the Karapiro Classic is ruled in style by Janelle Miller's stylish mare. A very good morning to you. Welcome into Weigh In as we review Group 1 day out of Te Rapa. Plenty to look forward to on the show today. We have Will Hayes live shortly, and as I mentioned, Rory Hutchings as well. As usual, Emily Murphy's with me. Jane, you're with me as well. Jayne Emily, Emily, you were down there. Looked like a stunning day for starters, and the best horses once again rose to the occasion.
It was a beautiful day, incredibly hot, but a beautiful day on course. The sun shone. We had great conditions, and as you mentioned, Guy, the horses certainly delivered. We had top quality racing across the board. We've got the undercard races where we saw some really promising 3-year-olds, and then of course we had the highlight, the Group 1s, and they didn't disappoint.
Well, it always built up to be a wonderful race day, didn't it? We've been talking about the way the fields were going to shape for weeks, and there's no doubt that the results that we saw on the track yesterday certainly delivered. And you mentioned those 3-year-olds. I thought Like a Lucy was probably one of the highlights of the afternoon. Her progression has been incredible, but the Group 1s, they didn't disappoint. They were exciting races to watch, and not only did we have Group 1 action here in New Zealand, we also saw Group 1 action across the Tasman and Victoria with the CF4, and I thought a really fitting result there as well, with another Will taking out their feature. Yes,
indeed, we'll unpack all of that, but the Hayes brothers brought one horse to New Zealand, and he did the job in the BCD Group Sprint.
Let's look at the horses in the mounting yard and start with the number 1, Here to Shock. Nash Rawler combines with Bill, Ben, Will and JD Hayes and looks like a nice chance.
The TAB hot horse has to be the Hayes brothers. Aussie Raider Here to Shock, 7.5 into $4.
Both very positive about the horse. Nash thought had a really nice chance here. He had a good assessment of the horse, a good opinion, and I like the fact that they're going to be positive.
BCD Group Sprint, they're set. Let's bring it on. Gates open, they're off. Savagely exploded from the gates to lead early. From Babylon, Berlin, Basusto's right there as well. Grail Seekers up in the party today from Here to Shock, and then Luberon. Towards 1,000 metres they go, and taking over Babylon, Berlin, led by a length and a half from Here to Shock. Babylon, Berlin, the leader, tackled by Here to Shock. Savagely trying to get out of her pockets, doing so now. Then Basusto, further out there's Grail Seeker, but it's Here to Shock. The Aussie burst away at the 100 metres. Oh, too good. Here to Shock, and Nash Rawler win the BCD Group Sprint. Second, Bastosto, the run first and second, the Aussies third.
So special, just so proud of the team, everyone back home. Special shout out to Nora Luby, who's been travelling the horse. She's done such a terrific job. He presented so well on race day, and that was just a terrific ride by Nash. Look at the track shape of Te Rapa. It's my first time here, but with the big long run into the first corner, it was always going to be nice for Here to Shock to find a nice rhythm and get across when he could. So we got a little bit of cover early, and we were slightly overdoing it, but as the race got further on, he got more comfortable and gave a really good kick at the top of the straight. He was really dominant today. It was why we picked out this race and why we came over here. We felt like he was well placed. We were taking on some of the best New Zealand gallopers, and it was just good to see some Australian form stand up, and he's taken that good form from the Supernova. He's incredibly consistent, and a credit to himself.
You know, a little bit blown away by him because he's shown he can do that, and you know, he's just racing with so much confidence now. He's won those few nice races, and you just sense he could go back to Australia and be very competitive in a Group 1, you know, early in the season while he's fit, and a few of those better ones are sort of on their way up. So it's well worth considering. He's really got his tail up his horse. He didn't take this ride lightly. I sort of had a month off with a pretty bad shoulder injury, and just tried to do all the right things by that, and just thought he was a perfect horse to come over and kick off on, and you know, it just puts a smile on your face when they don't let you down.
Here to Shock from Basusto, Savagely and Waitac, and we're very lucky to be joined now on the show live by Will Hayes down from Cambridge. Good to have you over here, Will, or as Emily just called you, Bill, in the lead up to that race. Good to have you on the line, mate. Congratulations. How do celebrations in New Zealand compare to those over in Australia?
No, very good. New Zealand is an incredible country and they're great hosts. So, yeah, the hangovers are very similar.
I love that. He's had a couple of cracks at Group 1s over in Australia and not quite been able to get it done. What gave you the confidence that you could come here and raid our big sprint race?
I think his preparation in general has shown really nice natural improvement through what he does. He's, as you'll know, he's got earmuffs on. He's a horse that can overdo it. And for a long time, we've been trying to get him to settle. He still did it 10% wrong yesterday, but just the way he's able to save a kick in the locker and really put them away at the top of the straight, we do believe that it was a good stepping stone to try and start the Group 1 campaign, and for him to win like he did yesterday will be just great confidence to go back to Australia and hopefully be competitive in the Group 1s there.
Well, the booking of Nash Rawler was a key element to the victory yesterday. Talk to me about that conversation with Nash, because he was obviously returning from that shoulder dislocation. He hadn't ridden since the 4th of January. Talk to me about how that unfolded and what he added, obviously, to Here to Shock yesterday.
Yeah, congratulations to our racing manager, Dom Roden and Liam Pryor. They did a good job, and Nash is a credit to himself. He's an ultimate professional. He was working for the whole month to get his shoulder right, and the conversation pre-race was pretty simple. Nash knows the horse very well and he's the best in the business. So from the wide gate, we were very confident that we were just going to roll forward and take our time to get across, because we had time before the first corner. So it was a very keep it simple approach to the race, and Nash made it look a lot easier than it was.
He is a horse that didn't begin his career with the team in Australia, and I know from watching him early in his career that he has always been quite a difficult horse. Can you just tell us a little bit about that progression? Because if you'd watched a horse like him parade perhaps 18 months or 2 years ago, you would think that perhaps a trip to New Zealand was not an option for him. What's it been like, and what have the team done to get this horse to mature the way that he has?
No, certainly. He has been I do believe there's a couple of factors as to what's contributed to him getting better. I do believe time itself is a contributor as he's gotten older and he's been able to cope with the stresses of race day. His regular strapper, Nora Luby, has done a terrific job working with the horse. Every day he's at the farm. She was on him from the first day that he came to the property, and she really gets on with him well and understands him. He's definitely a one-rider horse. And also the country environment that we have at Euroa, I do believe, really suited him. He was previously trained in a city environment, and that definitely didn't suit his mental state. And we just found the longer that we had him in the country, the more he settled and the more that transferred to his mannerisms on race day and in the race.
Well, you talk about starting a Group 1 path. The first box has been ticked, but what's next for him? Where does that victory yesterday lead?
Well, he's a horse that we do like to keep fresh. So what we're thinking is going to Sydney in the early stages. He's pulled up really sound this morning and pulled up really well. So on the calendar is the Canterbury Stakes and the All Age. Then in that right distancing away, and we could keep him nice and fresh and head towards them.
What's your genuine thoughts on how he's going to stand up in Australia at that level? You've attempted before, he hasn't quite got there, and in all honesty, he's probably looked a little bit below the best sprinters in Australia, but he seems to be racing with an enormous amount of confidence this campaign, and even Nash Rawler echoed that in his post-race comments yesterday.
Yeah, Group 1s are hard to win wherever you are. So we don't take what he did at New Zealand lightly. At Te Rapa yesterday, he was very dominant, and you would take great confidence to go to a Group 1 off the strength of that. We do think he's continually improving, and I think for him to win a Group 1 in Australia, he will need a few factors to go his way, like you always do on Group 1 day. You're against champions, but a nice low draw and an easy lead, I think he's a very hard horse to catch.
Will yourself, Ben and JD take on a huge body of work with Lindsay Park Racing? Talk to me about the dynamic between the training partnership. It must be great to celebrate the highs and the lows, obviously, as a family.
No, definitely. We're very fortunate to be in the position we're in, but we definitely do it with a great team around us. I know us three boys are certainly a shop front to what is a big team at Lindsay Park. We have great support around us at all three stables, Flemington, Pakenham and Euroa, and when we get the Group 1 success, or any success for that matter, the team just always celebrates together. So there were parties everywhere, and success is better shared.
You did pull the right string yesterday heading to New Zealand and picking up the Group 1 win. Your horses did race with particular merit yesterday in Melbourne. We're going to touch on a couple of those. Mr. Brightside to begin with in the CF4. What were the team's thoughts on his performance? I think probably the early work just told a little bit in the finish there.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. Congratulations to Jayne Emily and Kieran Murray and another Will. That was a terrific run. They had the beautiful position in behind us, and they were too good for us in the straight. But full credit to Mr. Brightside. He made his luck from a wide draw. He put himself just in behind the speed, and he gave a good kick. And he just, as you said, peaked on his run about 75 out from the line, and it took a really good horse to run him down.
What's the plans looking like for him? Will he just follow a traditional path that we've seen from him in previous autumns?
Yeah, his rating's so high. He does sort of pick his own program. So he's pulled up super, and we'll be heading towards the futurity.
The other horse that the Kiwis have a little bit of an eye on is Evaporate, of course, who was pretty unlucky running a slashing placing yesterday as well.
Yeah, he's still trying to get out, I think, Mark Zara. So he didn't quite go his way turning into the straight, but we couldn't have been happy with the horse. We're of the opinion that if the run presented, he would have been very, very close to winning that race. He's pulled up super as well. Not being able to get out does have its positives if you're going with a glass half full sort of attitude. And a month before the Kiwi, we'll closely monitor him over the next couple of days, and we'll set a path towards it, whether we have a jump out and fly over like we did with Here to Shock, or if we go 2 weeks into another run.
When will you likely bring him over here? How long before the race will you get him over to New Zealand?
It'll likely be the 3rd week before the race, so around early March.
Okay, and then do you guys have your eyes, you've already come and taken one of our Group 1s, do you have your eyes on any other races, obviously the Kiwi, but any other horses that you might bring over here for some of our other big races here in New Zealand?
We'll always have our eye on the New Zealand calendar, but at the minute we've just got Evaporate penciled in.
Okay, alrighty, well we look forward to potentially seeing some more of your horses over here. Will, thanks so much for jumping on the line this morning. We appreciate it, mate, and good luck going forward with all of your runners as well.
Thank you very much for having me.
Good man. Will Hayes there out of Cambridge, of course, the co-trainer of the winner of the BCD Group Sprint in Here to Shock, trains alongside his brothers JD and Ben as well. So good to see them come over here and get some success here in New Zealand. Here to Shock beats Bizusto, Savagly and Waitak, and we can about head over to the wall now with Emily and Jayne for a bit of analysis as to how the race played out.
Yeah, there's a little bit going on, wasn't there, Emily? Yeah, particularly out of the barrier, and we saw a couple of runners step away very quickly, others a little bit slow, but the key points are Savagly, who come out of the barrier very quickly, and I think there was a couple of key moves early in the race which allowed Here to Shock to find such a good position in running.
Yeah, I guess Grail Seeker was a horse that's a little bit more handy than what we anticipated in running. You can see Babylon Berlin just sliding across to take up that leading position, which enabled Nash to be able to slide outside Savagly at this point. And then, of course, as you look back, Grail Seeker we did expect to be a little bit further back than what she was. Obviously a key chance in the race, Jayne. Yeah,
there's obviously horses that mapped a little bit differently to where they landed. Navigator, probably one of those that was slow out of the barrier, sat wide. The Trip, probably a little bit forgiving as well. But Babylon Berlin actually got a softer lead in the race than what I was expecting. When we look at them at the point of the turn, Savagly sitting in the trail, Here to Shock on the outside. And this is where I think Nash really won the race, kept Sam Spratt in a pocket and was able to get into clear air and accelerate. He got that break on the field when there were still horses trying to work out their position. Look, I thought Savagly was really brave in the finish, considering he didn't get a lot of opportunity in the home straight. And, you know, being a colt, generally they prefer to race with a little bit more room. Grail Seeker probably was the disappointment of the race, given that she presented early enough to run down Here to Shock if she had been at her best. Waitak from the tail of the field I thought was excellent as well. So there was a couple of nice runs in behind, but a couple of disappointments as well.
news with regards to some of those Group 1 performers out of the BCD Group Sprint. Grailseek is going to go to the paddock before they target a Queensland campaign. And as for Waitak, who ran that good fourth, he's going to head to the mile next at Ellerslie. That'll be assuming that old Otaki, not the old, the Otaki race that's now at Ellerslie. And Savagly, they are confident to head across the ditch to an Australian Guineas. Back to his own age, he'll be really well placed there, Will Savagly.
Yeah. Fair enough too, it was a decent run.
Yeah, Luberon was one of the other disappointments in the race. Was a little bit awkwardly out of the barrier, sort of back and running. Her rider felt like something might have been amiss. She was vetted on race day. No abnormalities were found initially after the race, but the stewards will follow up with her in the coming days. But it was really interesting with these sprinters, Emily, and what we see them do next in terms of programming here in New Zealand. We've seen sort of a flurry of Group 1 sprints run in a period of 5 weeks, and it leaves very little options open for top class sprinters here in New Zealand now. A lot of these horses will probably target the Group 3 on Kiwi Day, the King's Plate, but they're having to come back and level to either a Group 3 or a listed race to keep competing through the autumn, unless they're good enough to head to Australia.
I guess historically the sprints would have led to a run at the mile, because that's what we're so good at producing, is our mile to 2,000 metre horses. But now we're seeing the resurgence of sprinters in New Zealand, where we have these horses that are so good at the sprinting distances. And as we heard from Will Hayes, they're not sticking around in New Zealand because there isn't anything for Here to Shock. They're going to look across the ditch and go to a Canterbury Stakes back to the 1300, and there are options over there, and I guess that's something that needs to be considered. A more spread sprinting program leading into the autumn, culminating in a grand final like we're seeing with our middle distance races.
I do want to ask you about where it leaves our sprinters in terms of the sprinting ranks in general. I'll do that after we hear from the beaten jockeys, starting with Josh Parr aboard Besusto.
Terrific effort. We ended up in a spot behind two that I wanted to follow. We got the split at the top of the straight, and I really thought we were in contention, but obviously the winner was just far too good for us today.
Yeah, really nice run. Minorly got held up at about the 300. I wouldn't say held up, but just sort of had to change across grounds a little bit. Might have run second, but hey, tough effort, pretty good field, so nah, can't knock it.
We sort of boxed in on the rail, just needed sort of to get a bit of room, sort of 100 metres before we did. But I can't take anything from me, he's ran well.
I was in a lovely spot, followed the winner through the whole race. Just felt like she didn't really let herself down on the ground. The ground's pretty quick, drying up all the time, so yeah, she'll be better and back, bit of cut in the ground.
That was the beaten jockeys out of the BCD Group Sprint. We had so much confidence about our sprinters heading into that race. How much, if at all, has the bubble burst?
I think a little bit. It will really depend on what Here to Shock goes back to Australia and is able to do. He's sort of on an upward trajectory. I know he's an older horse and he's been tried at Group 1 level in Australia before and failed, but he is a horse racing with a lot of confidence. My understanding of him as a horse, and having watched him in Australia and watched him compete, is that he's a really good, solid Group 3 horse in Australia. Hopefully this season he can go to the next level. But when you look at ratings, he's well off those top sprinters in Australia. When you're looking at horses like Ballinipatina, I Wish I Win, Sunshine in Paris, Gigakick, you know, they're rated a lot higher than a horse like Here to Shock. So for our sprinters to go to Australia and be competitive, I think they probably needed to prove that they were as good as Here to Shock, if not better, yesterday, and they didn't do that. And I know that there were some various excuses for why that didn't happen. I don't think Savagly had the best run in transit. Obviously, the track was a bit too hard for Grailseek. Luberon sort of had an off day. But look, I thought the result was a little bit concerning for our sprinters, because we did have really high hopes for them at the beginning of the season. But yeah, I think what we need to see is Here to Shock go to Australia and prove that he's up to that level, which would give our trainers confidence that our sprinters are up to that level.
Alrighty, we will look forward to seeing what happens with Here to Shock going forward. We obviously have one other Group 1 to review out of Te Rapa. It's the Herbie Dyke Stakes. We will chat to Rory Hutchings on the other side of this break.
And we don't worry about it.
Horse number 1, El Vencedor. Leith, you and I were both on track last week when he won. He was incredibly impressive. Stakes our 6th race of the afternoon here at Te Rapa in the first of 2 features. He looks to take out another Group 1, does El Vencedor at the top of the book.
Let's bring it on. Gates open, they're racing in the Herbie Dyke Stakes. El Vencedor from barrier 2 got the best of the start, and he's off and gone. El Vencedor on the corner, 400 to go. He got away by 3 lengths. Lark Creek out after him, so is Numerian. And behind these then is Sharp and Smart. It's El Vencedor at the 250. 2 lengths clear from Lark Creek. Numerian, late run ladies man out wide, but it's the big EV. El Vencedor with 100 to go. Shut the gate. He's home in the Herbie Dyke Stakes. Brilliant winner, El Vencedor. Lark Creek second, third from Mayhu.
I don't usually get too animated during a race, but geez, I tell you, I went a bit mad at the 100. A lot of satisfaction, very proud of the horse. You know, we had a plan. We wanted to run him last Saturday, have him hard fit, ready to go. You know, for the owners, David and Mark, they've bred him. They were great supporters of us. It takes him well over the $1 million now. He's gone to another level, and we had a plan to make it a bit of a staying test. And I was a bit worried when Vinny, he couldn't hold that other horse, but took off and great start.
The further we went, sort of the stronger he got, and I like when he's like that because you know he's ready to go. And I got to the 600 and my arms got a little bit tired, so I said, time to go, boy, we'll make them chase us, and the rest is history. And this is the whole reason why I come home to ride a big winner and knocked it off straight away.
Yeah, well done to you, Rory Hutchings, El Vencedor from La Creek, Whangehu and Ladies Man. And we're very lucky to be joined by Rory Hutchings now live on Weigh In. Rory, thanks so much for jumping on with us early on a Sunday. A decade since your last win in the Herbie Dyke Stakes. How special to be able to do it again?
Yeah, no, it was unreal yesterday. Like you said, 10 years since my last Group 1 winner, and it was, you know, a big reason why I come home for a stint was sort of to have that feeling again.
You've struck up a really good rapport with El Vencedor. Tell me about the horse and your sort of feeling of him.
Yeah, he's a typical old war horse, big, strong, free-rolling sort of a boy, and I've worked out pretty quick. You work with him instead of against him, and yeah, we seem to get on well.
I thought it was a beautiful ride, Rory, given the circumstances in the race with Mascot going round you. Did you always have it in your head when a horse is over racing like that he was going to capitulate? You were still actually able to use El Vencedor to his advantage by, you know, getting going early in the race?
Yeah, I sort of try to stick to our game plan. Obviously didn't expect Mascot to come and take us on, but when he did, I just sort of rode my bloke, tried to keep him in as much of a rhythm as I could, and yeah, that was always the plan, to sort of take off early and make them chase us, but I probably done it harder and faster than I sort of planned, just because that horse was sort of going to stop and hopefully hold a couple of them up and behind.
Rory, for you personally, you've come back to New Zealand during the summer period. What's the intention with these big winners that keep rolling in and the nice rides that you've been getting? Would there be any inclination to stick around in New Zealand?
Oh, look, I'm sort of just taking it day by day at this stage, but yeah, if it keeps going like this, I might have to have a little bit of a think in a couple of months, but I was hoping to have success when I come back, but definitely didn't expect to have as many big race winners as I have already.
What's it like being back in New Zealand? Of course, the tracks you know well, people you know well, guys are in the jockey room. How's it been for you in terms of the camaraderie and those friendships being back in the New Zealand jockeys room?
Yeah, it's actually been so cool. Sort of come back with no pressure on myself at all, and was able to, you know, just enjoy my riding. And like you said, I've been mates with a lot of the boys for a number of years now, and yeah, it's really fun to go to the races.
When you come back with no pressure and you don't have that on your shoulders, I suppose, how much does that allow you to be able to ride better, ride freely? What does it do for your kind of mental game heading into every race?
Yeah, it's you know, it's just very free and sort of open-minded about how I go about things, and I think the results are sort of speaking for themselves. Riding in very good form, and obviously the opportunities have been unreal, which certainly helps.
Rory, what in your time away did you learn? Because you've been away from New Zealand for a while, basing yourself in New South Wales. What have you taken away from that period overseas?
Yeah, probably just a lot of professionalism and was able to find a little bit of work ethic. You know, it's a cutthroat game in New South Wales, and the top of the tree, they're the world's best over there. So it certainly makes it day in and day out a little bit tough, you know, having a match with those boys. But yeah, it certainly turned me into a better rider, that's for sure.
What about future assignments? Obviously, you've ticked off the Group 1 Herbie Dyke, but there's some big race days upcoming, including the NZB Kiwi, the New Zealand Derby. What are you most looking forward to in terms of the next couple of months?
Yeah, everything you stated there, Emily. Obviously, Champions Day is going to be unreal. Still have a couple of rides there, need to lock in sort of a derby and that sort of thing, but really excited to partner sought after in the NZB Kiwi for the Wexford team and Waikato stud. I think he's sort of the right horse for the race, but there's good racing week in and week out here at this stage, and they're racing for very good prize money.
If we can just take a look at a couple of the other rides on the day as well. You had Our Time in the Karapiro Classic, and I thought that was a huge run.
Yeah, for sure. A lightly raced horse. He's only going to improve with racing. Took him a little while to wind up, longer than I expected. He's only narrowly gone down, but yeah, he's a horse to watch for the future as he steps up over trip.
I guess the other one to mention was the placing in the Waikato Guineas. Amazing Fluke, who really rallied well late.
Yeah, he did. He was a little bit aggressive up over ground. Expected him sort of to get a bit tired and maybe drop out late, but to his credit, he fought hard. And if he can get sort of the middle stages right, he come into a derby for sure.
Good man, Rory. Hey, we do appreciate you jumping on the line this morning with us here on Weigh In. Congratulations on your Group 1 success yesterday, and I'm sure we'll see it many times again going forward. Good man.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Good man, Rory Hutchings there, who was on board El Vencedor, winning the Herbie Dyke Stakes 10 years after he did it with Soriano in the same race. Let's get you across to the wall with Jayne and Emily for a little bit more analysis into this race.
I guess compared to the BCD Group Sprint, this was a more messy race, Jayne. There was a lot of things unfolding that certainly could have impacted El Vencedor, but didn't. Mascot being the key horse that sort of caused that with the over racing.
Yeah, probably the pace wasn't as strong as some of those horses in behind perhaps needed. We've seen that a lot in New Zealand racing, but as always, El Vencedor bounced out of the barrier really strongly, put himself right there on speed.
Whangehu's a horse to mention who was slow away and then just never came onto the bridle, but has obviously run home to place. You can see him just popping into the tail of the screen there.
It's sort of his traditional racing pattern. As you can see, the Australian Numerian popped on outside of the leader, and it's where we see Vinnie Colgan back in the 1-1 having a little bit of trouble with Mascot. As you can see, the horse was skying his head, over racing quite significantly. Vinnie did the best he could to try and get the horse to settle. When that wasn't going to happen off the slow tempo, he elected to roll round the field. As we heard from Rory Hutchings, that just got El Vencedor up on the bridle for sort of about 50 metres time, but in the end they actually all settled into some a nice rhythm. We had obviously Mascot in the lead. As you can see, Rory Hutchings there coming off the fence on El Vencedor to get himself into a striking position where he was able to take off early and put the rest of the field under pressure. Numerian was probably a little bit disappointing when the pressure went on. He didn't deliver. The team believe that was probably due to the firm track, but some really nice runs in behind. You mentioned Whangehu, who is up on the fence. Ladies Man got a little bit dictated to at the tail of the field as well. I thought both great runs from those, but when you watch the decisions of the jockeys, Ladies Man, Kevin Stott elects to go wide, whereas Whangehu up the rail gets the run. La Creek disappointing for Connections that she's run second again. She had the run of the race in the trail, La Creek. Didn't spend a penny. Look, took a little while to get out and get rolling, but another brave effort from her.
Rory was just able to slip away, wasn't he? We just missed it there, but it was just at the top of the straight there. He pressed the go button and the race had sort of happened. It had unfolded by the time everyone had caught up, and whilst there were some good horses making ground late, it was all over for Rory, and El Vencedor a really dominant win.
Yeah, it was the way he needed to be ridden, Guy, and there's no doubt that Rory Hutchings delivered, but a little bit lighter in the pocket for it.
I think he won't mind that so much after taking home a Group 1, Jayne. Yes, indeed, El Vencedor from La Group Fungohu, and ladies man there as we see this running again of El Vencedor coming down the straight. Where does he go next?
El Vencedor is going to obviously head to that Bone Crusher New Zealand Stakes, which, well, you'd have to say is really at his mercy.
Back at Ellerslie, yeah, exactly.
Back at Ellerslie, it's his favourite track. He's won this race previously. He's in career best form. He's not missed a run, which obviously Snazzy Tavi has missed a run, and they're going to have to adapt their program to suit that. She's very good, very, very good. We know that, but geez, he's racing an exceptional form. That victory last week, carrying 8 kilos more than his rivals, and the way he did it, incredible.
It'll be actually really interesting to see what they do with him in the interim, because they do have the option to go into the race in a very similar way to what they did the Herbie Dyke, because you do have in 2 weeks' time the weight for age over a mile at Ellerslie, which he could return to Ellerslie, drop back to a mile, and then 2 weeks later run in the 2,000 metre race, or he could even run 2,000 metres at Matamata the week before. So it'll be interesting to see whether they keep him away from the racetrack in between runs or do something very similar to what we saw going into yesterday's race.
Based on what he's done previously, the more they race him, the better he gets. So I think Stephen mentioned yesterday in his post-race interview, he's a little rotund, and the racing doesn't do him any harm. So I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see him out and about again prior to going to Ellerslie for Champions Day.
It wouldn't be a shock if he was at Ellerslie, that is for sure, heading towards Champions Day as well. Let's hear from the beaten jockeys, starting with Michael McNabb on board La Creek.
I'd love to win one on her soon. She ran well again. Just had to sort of get out from where I was when the race changed complexion with Matt Scott, and that gave Roy this sort of chance to get his break, but she was super again.
Yeah, good run. Probably sat a bit too far back of a slow pace, but the draw wasn't ideal.
That was the beaten jockeys there out of the Herbie Dyke Stakes, and obviously a significant day for Rich Hill Stud as well, with Shocking the Sire, being the sire of the 2 winners.
We've become so used to Rich Hill Stud achieving great things. Of course, Prasira, a leading light for them, and Shocking. He's underrated. He does a great job with the progeny that he leads, and for John Thompson and Colleen, obviously great for them to have had that success yesterday. It's the day of dreams, isn't it, to have had a Group 1 double. Very well deserved.
And a horse by their sire now leads the Rich Hill Championship Middle Distance Series, so a $300,000 bonus up for grabs for El Vencedor if he can sit on top of that leaderboard. He's just been a fantastic horse for Connections. Mark Friedman, David Price, who are great supporters of Stephen Marsh's stable. They bred him, they've raced him, 10 wins now, 1.2 million in prize money, so he's been a wonderful horse for his Connections.
Well, let's hear from John Thompson from Rich Hill Stud. Aidan spoke to him yesterday.
John, what a result for Shocking, picking up both the Group 1s here at Te Rapa today. Your reaction?
Look, pretty unbelievable, really, Aidan. I mean, we all know he's been a great stallion over the years. He's always got a good horse, but he tends to get overshadowed by his barn mates a bit. But I think tonight he'll be getting an extra carrot.
Yeah, you looked at El Vencedor today. What a result. What a performance that was in the Herbie Dyke Stakes. How did you assess it?
Yeah, look, it was a career best performance. And I think if you run a line through La Creek, I know Snazzy Tavi wasn't in the field, but, you know, he would have been right up there even if they'd been there. Great ride, great training performance, and great performance by the horse.
Exactly, and that's a Quinella for your stallions as well, I think. And what about Here to Shock with the Aussie horse coming over, but still by Shocking, so another great result for the stud.
Exactly. Actually, it was a trifecta in the big Group 1 because Prasira was third in that Group 1. Wow. Yeah. So, but anyway, Wongahu. But no, getting back to Shocking. Look, great. You know, the Australians probably almost respect Shocking more than the New Zealanders. You know, he's a bit of a hero over there with his Melbourne Cup win. But you know, he's had horses like I'm Thunderstruck over there, but you know, El Vencedor is starting to be spoken in the same breath, isn't he? Really, really satisfying for everyone concerned, Aidan.
Yeah, when they wait for age and of these type of calibre races, but 2014, what does it say about his versatility?
Yeah, like I guess a lot of people ask about that, but you've got to remember, Shocking himself, he won a Mackay Diva Stakes, which was a Group 2 mile when he won it, but it's now a Group 1 mile because horses like him won it. And so he was a very versatile horse himself, and being out of a Danehill mare, I think he's impacted that into his stock. So, no, very exciting, Aidan. Thanks.
Congratulations, John. Great day.
Yeah, cheers, mate.
Yeah, echo those congratulations as well to everyone at Rich Hill Stud. Well done to you. We're going to take a break here on Weigh In. On the other side, we continue to look at Te Rapa, including the 2 3-year-old stakes features.
It's now Like a Lucy. After a couple of hair-raising moments, she's going to race away. Tuxedo, he's all suited up for victory here. Bourbon Proof's trying to rally late. He wants to run around a Tuxedo, but he'll get the prize. He'll stroll home in the Legacy Lodge, Waikato Guineas.
Welcome back into Weigh In. Great to have you with us as we review a massive day out of Te Rapa. And we continue that review right now, starting with the Waikato Guineas. And this was a beautiful win by Tuxedo, wasn't it, team?
Beautiful win by a beautiful horse. He takes the eye, doesn't he, Emily? You saw him in the flesh. I saw him on Karaka Million night, and he just looks like a real traditional staying type. He's still a little bit raw, but he's got a lot going for him, doesn't he?
He sure has, and he was so relaxed. He just takes it all in his stride. When it came to the crunch here in this race, obviously Joe Doyle elected to come up the middle of the track. He was green up the straight. The ears were going. He was having a look around. At one point, you thought he might run off, but I think that just is a testament to the ability that's there, and that it was effortless for him. And obviously, if the field had been able to go with him, he would have had that support. But just as you said, a really raw, green, talented type who's only getting better the further he goes.
It's really interesting that this was sort of a bit of a turning point in his preparation as to see where he would head next. There was obviously a little bit talk prior to the race that he was a horse that could overdo it. He just lacked a little bit of ring craft at this point in his career, just wanted to get on the bridle a little bit firmly. I really liked the way they rode him yesterday, that they were very neutral out of the barrier. He settled back. He actually relaxed really nicely in running, which allowed us to see such a great turn of foot when he was allowed to accelerate. You would think off the back of that he's probably still on track to be heading to a derby and running over 2,400 metres. He sort of ticked that box. I know Ellerslie 2,400 metres in a bigger field is a completely different story, but I did really like the way that he switched off yesterday in running. He sort of proved that perhaps he has got the potential to get up over a little bit more of a trip.
Yeah, it looks that way, doesn't it? We were just talking in the break, weren't we, about the Derby, and it's a tough race. There is some serious talent heading towards the New Zealand Derby. The top two of the book, Hinikaha and, of course, Will They Do It. They're hard horses to take on, but Tuxedo's not doing anything wrong, and this is a confidence-giving win, and he's been racing in the best 3-year-old company of late. So I think there's a lot of positives when it comes to that horse. In terms of the beaten horses, obviously Bourbon Proof closed it off nicely. Golden Century are waiting to put it together. He's got Stayer Derby written all over him. And
he's still doing a few things wrong in running. He gets a little bit firm on the bit as well. Look, I think the benefit of this race was having a horse like Amazing Fluke who set a really good tempo, which allowed those horses to close from behind. Bourbon Proof, I think, was good. Didn't show the same turn of foot as we saw from Tuxedo, but he was good in the finish. This is probably not, as you mentioned, our top-line 3-year-olds heading towards derbies and towards New Zealand bloodstock Kiwis. So I think you just need to bear that in mind. I know Tuxedo was really impressive, but he's probably not beating the best of our 3-year-olds.
Yeah, exactly right. And yeah, I guess just with a horse like in recent years in our New Zealand Derby, orchestral aside, the most dour stayer has actually won our New Zealand Derby. When you cast your mind back to some of those recent victories, like Le Creek was a short price favourite and she got beaten by just an out-and-out stayer. Golden Century has that sort of profile, but he's just lacking the ring craft. Tuxedo's another one who doesn't have the brilliance of a Willie Do It, but potentially will keep on motoring all the way to the line. It's a big field, it's a high pressure race. It can throw up a surprise.
Yeah, alrighty, well let's hear from some key players out of the race, starting with the jockey on board the winner Tuxedo. That was Joe Doyle.
I was impressed the way he relaxed. You know, the last couple of times we've given him a squeeze from good gates and and he's travelled a bit too strong really, but today just threw the reins at him and he relaxed so well. He's going to give himself every chance to see out a Derby trip. So no, we're very happy with him.
Yeah, really good. Good staying effort. The winner was really sharp, but going to the 2-4, he'll stay all day. So that looks as go.
He ran well. It wasn't sort of the plan to lead. He was a little bit aggressive early. Couldn't quite get him to drop the bit middle stage, so we sort of had to just keep going on with it. And he batted on for third well. Heading towards the Derby, I'd like to see him just relax a little bit better to get the trip.
Tuxedo from Bourbon Proof, Amazing Fluke and Golden Century. Here is that Derby market at the moment. Obviously, Willie Do It stands above the rest right now at $2. Hinikaho was impressive last week, I think it was. They're at 5s alongside Tuxedo as well. So that's shaping up as another great race on Champions Day.
Obviously emphasised shortened in the market for the New Zealand Derby, but I think out of Australia yesterday we heard that the Buston Young team probably won't be heading to New Zealand for a derby with him.
We get that sort of fake derby in the form of the Avondale Guineas. That's obviously at Ellerslie. And I know yesterday there was sort of some talk about missing the Avondale Guineas and just going straight to the derby with the Tuxedo. But that's really going to be sort of the entree to the main as to how these horses will shape up. But I think the market's pretty spot on in terms of the race and the type of horses that are in it.
Yeah, we are counting down to Champions Day, that is for sure. There was another significant 3-year-old race yesterday there at Te Rapa. It was the David and Karen Ellis Phillies Classic. And this was tense for a short moment, but wowee, she is good, like a Lucy.
$1.25 or $1.28, whatever she started at. Some very tense moments if you took the favourite racing in the Aussie Kerr colours for the first time, obviously like a Lucy. She's just that good. She can overcome all of these issues. There was just nowhere to go for her up the straight, but once she gets out, the motor she shows, the power she shows, she just puts them to bed in a matter of strides. And actually, in the end, despite all that tenseness up the straight, she wins really quite comfortably. I don't think he's maybe hit her once or twice or hasn't hit her. So she's exceptional, and the Oaks is absolutely at her mercy.
Yeah, hands and heels to the line. It was very similar to what we saw from her at Trentham. She just seems to be able to get herself out of trouble. Craig Grills has actually given her a couple of beautiful runs in transit in her last couple of races. She's been, sort of one back on the fence and in the trail, and hasn't spent a penny in running, had really economical trips. It's just been a matter of getting her out at the top of the straight. She shows a devastating turn of foot. She's lucky she's a horse that is able to quicken very quickly once she gets a little bit of space. But I agree with you, Emily. I think that she heads to a lowland now and then onto a New Zealand Oaks. She's certainly the horse to beat leading into it. She's been a bit of a find, I think, over the last couple of months here in New Zealand and what we've been able to see her do on the racetrack. Unfortunately for us, the New Zealand Oaks will be her last start in New Zealand. She'll head across the Tasman and join Chris Waller's stable post the Oaks.
Bittersweet, isn't it? And particularly for someone like Robbie Patterson, who we had on the show, 2 weeks ago or so when she last won, and she was so impressive in doing that, and he told us that she's the best horse he's had, and he's had some pretty darn good horses, and now, just as she's showing how good she is, we've all got to say goodbye to her.
It's a really interesting time too, isn't it? Because with the addition of the NZB Kiwi, she'd be right in the market if they freshened her up and dropped her back to 1,500 metres, as would Willie Do It. It's an intriguing landscape at the moment with how you play your 3-year-olds and where you want to go.
Don't you think it's almost disappointing? I think the NZB Kiwi is an incredible initiative, and just the fact that we've had so much chat over it, that we have Australian interest, it's terrific for New Zealand racing. But it's so unfortunate that those horses can't run in a New Zealand Kiwi and a Derby and an Oak. So I think that probably needs to be looked at some point going forward, so we're not diluting the 3-year-old stock, because the Kiwi could be an incredible race if you had the Like a Lucy's, the Willie Do It's, the Savagleys, the Tuxedos, all in that race, and then going on to other targets afterwards.
I wonder if it was earlier, it would become the start of a campaign, and from the NZP Kiwi you could then go Karaka Million, or you could Australia Guineas, or you could go Derby
Oaks.
Yeah, it's certainly something that needs to be discussed, but just all these good horses and all these decisions to make. It must be a hard position to be in if you have a horse, 3-year-old with a little bit of talent. What do we do? Do we go a classic like the Derby? Do we go for the money and the glamour of the NZB Kiwi? Yeah, it's a great time to be in New Zealand racing.
A beautifully tough position, you might say. But yes, Like a Lucy did indeed take home the David and Karen Ellis Phillies Classic. And we can hear from Craig Grills now and just how dicey it was for him.
It was a little bit like last time too. Horses like her, you draw in where you're not going to be leading. There's always going to be that danger where the ones in front of you are going to sort of start stopping and the better improving runners are going to swoop round, and it's happened again, but I've just had to wait, and I was able to get through a gap, and once you did, she's probably won easier than she did last time. I didn't even have to sort of go for it with the stick, and she's really extended through line really strong.
Yes, super. Third start, jump, put herself in a good spot. Got a little bit lost off the bridle, but she's going to stay really well, so going forward, she's exciting.
Yeah, solid effort. I think, you know, they should probably press on to the Oaks now. She sort of stuck on very gamely. Any rain down at Wellington on that day was sort of big in her favour. But yeah, she's sort of given me the feel of just an out-and-out stayer, which showed today.
No, delighted with Alaskan's run today. She took a step forwards again. Just we went a bit slow and she just couldn't really quicken off the pace.
Yeah, look, she wasn't disgraced. Obviously had to do the donkey work. But yeah, she's a bit weak, a bit more time, and she might get up to that level.
Yes, the jockeys there out of that 3-year-old feature, and Jayne, obviously that now leaves Like a Lucy at the top of the Phillies leaderboard.
Well, she's 1 point off Alabama Lass in terms of New Zealand Bloodstock Filly of the Year, so 20 points as opposed to 21. But what we know about Alabama Lass is that she won't be contesting another race in the series, whereas Like a Lucy will go on to the Lowland and the New Zealand Oaks. So look, at this stage, as long as touchwood nothing goes amiss for her, I expect she'd be picking up a fair few more points on her way through to an Oaks.
Alrighty, let's move on to the other feature race out of Te Rapa, and it was of course the Karapiro Classic. This was won really impressively by Risque Ruler, and interesting, a number of horses making huge runs here from the back.
First of all, Risque Ruler was incredible. Just a mind-blowing performance where Risque Ruler came for. I really believe this is a serious horse, and they've given the horse time, and they're giving it more time now post this victory. I understand from Janelle post-race they're going to turn her out, and I think this is a name we're going to be hearing more about. She's come widest of all the contenders, and she's come from the tail of the field, and she's finished it off so strongly over the top. Incredibly impressive, Jayne.
Yeah, she's a really nice mare, 4-year-old mare, so she's still got so much more in store for her. 8 starts for 3 wins, so she's putting together a really nice record. And look, I know they've got high hopes for her. She can perhaps maybe be the Provence of 12 months ago. We know she won a special conditions 1200 metre race at the meeting last year, and then has gone on to win it at Group 1 level. So look, Janelle Miller, Christelle, they're a great combination. When they come together, they strike it at a pretty good percentage, and Chris knows this mare well. I thought it was really interesting conversation post-race about the way they prepared for the race. Obviously, at that point in time, the track was racing a little bit forward. She was a drifter in the market because of her pattern on race day, but they were quite content just to ride her the way she needed to be ridden, and she delivered and got the result. Really interesting with the closers, Emily, that only 2 lengths covered the first 7 home in the race. So there were actually a couple of eye catchers out of it.
Yeah, certainly a race that you want to look back on. I thought Our Time, who was obviously in second, was another really good run, a really well-bred type. Similar sort of profile in that they're just giving this horse time, and he keeps on improving. And Class, obviously setting up the tempo, looked to be pretty strong in running, as stuck on for that 3rd spot as well.
Alrighty, well that was everything out of Te Rapa, but there was another feature on the day down south at Wingatui. It was the running of the Hazlitt Stakes, and a massive congratulations to everyone involved in Harlech, who beat home the Radiant One, Adenaya and Betty Spaghetti.
Harlech's had a good run. The Northerner comes to the outside to chase down the Radiant One as they turn the bend. The Radiant One from Willis. Harlech to the outside. The Good Shepherd's there, and running home Betty Spaghetti down the extreme outside. Going to the lead was Harlech. Leads by a length over the Radiant One. Willis the inside. Betty Spaghetti. The Good Shepherd starts to run on. Harlech broke away. Harlech leads by 3 lengths to the Hazlitt from the Radiant One. Then Adenaya to 3rd, but it's all Harlech. The Northerners too good. Harlech first, the Radiant One 2nd, Adenaya 3rd, Betty Spaghetti in 4th.
Yeah, he seems to grow a leg when he comes down south. I think it must be the good company
He has down here. Yeah, from the wide draw, he made my job easy. He jumped good, slotted just outside the leader, one crossed him, I just sat on its back, and then the track's a wee bit off on the inside, so it played into my hands that I could just roll off its back, and yeah, he put them away pretty easy.
So we're set to go for the breeders. We're ready, set, gates open, they're away. Ricchio's slow and a bit tardy, Sugar Sweet. Hadid jumped away well, Ruby Rocks will land right there. Pushing forward Imperial Empress and Blissful Bell, and now Reputation comes across. 500 metres to go. Reputation moved up to apply the pressure. Ruby Rocks has now come off the bridle under pressure. Imperial Empress third, followed by Hadid. Sugar Sweet held up behind those, followed by Blissful Bell and Kanchi looking to wind up from the back into the straight. Reputation shot away. Reputation has raced about 5 lengths in front. Nigel Elaine starting to storm down the outside with Kanchi, but Reputation left them standing 3 lengths in front, and it's all Reputation for the one upper thoroughbred breeders. A brilliant win. Reputation at the Grace Green and Gold.
But gee, this is a ride from Lily Sutherland on her birthday. Lily gets a black type race, and it's some performance because she's got it outside the leader. From there before the corner, she put a bit of pressure into the race, and the race was over. You just went to the window and collected your ticket.
Yeah, well done to everyone involved in Reputation, and including Lily Sutherland, who, as you heard there, it was her birthday on Waitangi Day on Thursday. Great crowd there at Tauhara Nico as well, which is fantastic to see. Let's move across to Australia, and I know we touched on the CF4 Stakes when we had Will on earlier in the show, but let's take another look at this. Great story here around another Will, or a poignant story around another Will taking Group 1 success here.
Yeah, great for the connections. Colin McKenna, or the late Colin McKenna, one of his favourite horses, and he's able to deliver at Group 1 level. It was an interesting race to watch unfold. As we expected, Schwartz went straight to the front and run them along at a good tempo. What we don't see is the work that Mr Brightside had to do from a wide barrier. He was sort of midfield from the jump, and Craig did have to push the button and use up a little bit of gas early to sit up outside the leader. The map horses of the race were always going to be Private Life and Another Will. They were going to be sitting back off the speed. Another Will in the 1-1, beautifully ridden by Jamie Mallam, and she was able to get the better of Mr Brightside on the line. But I think it was just the difference in the runs that they had in transit is what we saw in the result. But look, we talk about racing gods, and it was, you know, an emotional result for the Kieran Maher team, for Janice McKenna, obviously the wife of the late Colin McKenna. So yeah, great result, as we saw the Hayes boys consoling each other post the defeat of Mr Brightside, but he'll bounce out of the race and improve off of it. I thought Step Hardy was really good again. He's a horse that hasn't won a race for over 18 months, but he keeps running slashing races at the top level, so hopefully he can pick up one shortly. Private Life, a good run from him as well. I thought there was a couple of disappointments in the race. Pinstripe had an off day. Southport Tycoon with the blinkers on, he was another one that had a great run in transit, was presented at the right time and just didn't let down, so not sure what's going on with him either.
Let's look at the Eskimo Prince Stakes, and there was a New Zealand Quinella here, New Zealand bred Quinella, in public attention and linebacker.
Yeah, great result for the New Zealand breds, particularly with public attention. He's the horse that was bred by the late Sir Patrick Hogan and Lady Hogan. Last time we saw him was in the Caulfield Guineas. He was probably a little bit weak at that point of time. Price Kent team gave him a little bit of a break. He's returned this preparation, and he returned it in super order. He's been able to deliver first up. Linebacker came back a gelding. Much better from him this time round. He was a lot more switched on. I think he's the one that's really going to improve out of the race.
Yeah, it looks that way, doesn't it? I know the team around public attention, they sort of battled last preparation. He had a little bit of a shin soreness, and they were just holding him together as such, where they've commented that this preparation, he's just come back so much better physically, great attitude, great action. Obviously, Legramore is a daughter of Katie Lee, and was the first foal of Katie Lee. So a blue blood there, public attention, and great to see that pedigree on display.
Yeah, beautiful stuff, that. Alrighty, well, we had some news during the week of a new thoroughbred, New Zealand Thoroughbred Racing Chief Executive, and Emily caught up with Matt Ballesty.
Great to welcome in NZTR's new CEO, Matt Ballesty, to the coverage. And Matt, great to be with you. We heard a little bit of an Australian twang in your accent. Tell us about your background.
Yeah, well, I'm an Aussie. Not quite yet going for the ABs, but I've got a real soft spot for them. So an Aussie, born and bred in Sydney, but I haven't lived in Sydney for about 20 years. I'm also a Kiwi citizen, been here for the last 10 years, so I'm very familiar with the New Zealand landscape. I'm here with my 3 daughters today, of whom all of them are Kiwis. So yeah, very much an Aussie accent, but probably not as thick as it once was.
Tell us about your career. What's your background?
30 years in hospitality and casinos. I spent probably the first 12 years of my career in New South Wales clubs, which were really owned by members and members who put their own money on the line and so on. So a lot to do with their livelihoods, and saw those progress into bigger properties with more to offer. And then moved into publicly listed companies. So I worked for Crown Resorts, Sky City and a few others just all around the world. So that took me to New Zealand in the first instance in 2005, and then up to Macau. I was up there for a number of years opening and setting up casinos. And then I ran a casino over in Canada. I never thought I'd move around the world, but I have, and it's given me some really good insights into different jurisdictions and regulations and how things work.
Let's talk about the role with NZTR. What is it about racing and this role that appealed to you?
Well, I mean, have a look. It's fantastic. So, love racing. My father-in-law actually breeds and races horses, and so naturally I've been quite involved. Most conversations revolve around horses. I've owned horses, raced horses, and not really great results there, but that's part of the game, isn't it? So I just think it's a really good bunch of people, and I think it suits me down to the ground because I like being around good people, and I like understanding how I can make a contribution to a great industry.
What's the reception been like since the announcement's been made and you're here on course?
Yeah, so far so good. No one's yelling at me, which is nice. But I think it's been well received. I think one of the things that I'm noticing is that I'm not from the industry, haven't grown up through it. Sure, I've been around it and I understand it very well, but I think that new and fresh perspective is probably required at the moment. And asking a lot of questions, finding out how things work and who's who, and what are the motivations of everybody. Because we've got a great opportunity. This is an awesome industry, and we're at a real pivotal point where I just can't wait to get amongst it. It's an industry steeped in history and some great history there, and we want to be around in 20, 30, 40 years' time. So it's a huge responsibility, and there's some great people in the industry who all have the answers really, and it's just organising those and taking the steps and doing it with some speed as well, but making sure we do it right. So I think it's transformation, but exciting as well.
Matt Ballesty there with Emily down at Te Rapa, the new NZTR Chief Executive. Look forward to catching up with him a bit more as he eases into that role. Alrighty, let's take a look at our moments of the week here, team. Jane, I'll start with you.
Look, for me, it was the win of another will in the CF4. I just think when you talk about divine intervention, and we see these things happen a lot in racing, it was probably the right result. A bit sad to see the Kiwi bred Mr. right side down on the line, but just a great moment for the McKenna family.
Mine was, they came, they saw, they conquered. The Australians taking Group 1. I know it's a negative in terms of obviously a Kiwi horse not winning, but it's a positive in that more will come. If they think they can win, they will come, and that adds depth to our ranks, it adds interest to our race, it adds eyes, it adds money.
Yeah.
There's so many positives to that, what unfolded yesterday, and let's hope we see more of that.
I was about to say, how can you possibly make that the moment of the week, but you have justified it very well. Mine was Like a Lucy. I thought the way that she won again is just absolutely superb. She is a super horse, and as you know, I love seeing super horses win their races in style. So that was my moment of the week. What about your Weight Watchers, Emily?
We pretty much all gone for the same one if we had the choice, wouldn't we? December. For me, I'll got back, motored home, very impressive, Black Book.
Yeah, I think the issue around the barriers at the start really cost December. We saw him go up in the air when the gates opened. He got back and running and just stormed home when the sectionals become available for the race. I'm sure his will be some of the best closing sectionals. So I can't imagine that he's going to be out of the winner's circle for too long. So I'm with Emily. I thought December was the obvious Black Booker of the day.
He would have been mine as well, but I'm not a sheep, so I've found another one.
Okay.
I found another one in Ever Charm. You could have had about 5 out of this race. There were so many that came from the back and were huge. I just thought Ever Charm got held up a little bit longer than the rest of them and finished in beautifully into 4th. So Ever Charm is mine. December for Jayne and Emily. That wraps things up. Good to see you folks. We'll do it all again next week. Look forward to it. Thank you all very much for joining us this morning. Can't wait to get stuck into a bit more racing next week. Of course, don't forget the Gearin Report tomorrow night.